Welcome back, Nightmare Success In and Out listeners. I'm really excited to jump into this interview today. I have a great guest, Mike Morawski. He's a man of real estate, and when I say that, to give a little bit of a background here, he's got 30 plus years in the real estate investment business. That's over $285 million in real estate transactions. He's an entrepreneur. He's an author. He's a real estate trainer. He's a public speaker. He's a personal coach. He's chief investment officer of 2 multifamily hedge funds. He's the author of the book Exit Plan. He's the founder, CEO of My Core Intentions. And he's the host of Insider Secrets podcast. And he's a personal trainer coach. So he's got it all. And he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. And it's a great comeback story because, we on this show, it's all about what happens when your worst fear becomes your reality. How do you adapt, survive, overcome, set yourself free? Well, Mike is doing all that. And I can't wait to get into it. But first, I want to get into a sponsor for the show, Auto Plaza Direct. I would say that probably most people don't like to spend like a couple of weekends walking the lots, looking for cars. And then, you finally find that car and then you spend 4 to 5 hours in a dealership to buy the car. It's kind of like going to a trip, to the dentist. Nobody likes that. Well, there's a better way to take all this pain and hassle away of getting a car. It's called Auto Plaza Direct. They are your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they'll go find that car for you. They'll negotiate your best price and they'll deliver that car to you anywhere you are. They also offer you warranties and financing, full service. Go to autoplazadirect.com to get started with your personal car concierge. The new hassle-free way, the car buying experience you deserve, autoplazadirect.com. Tell them that Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. Okay, folks, let's jump into this. Mike, welcome to the show.
Brent, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this. I have
too.
That, the whole root canal, going to the dentist comment. I thought, God, I would have rather had a root canal than go to prison for 10 years.
That's true. A root canal, and I've had a root canal. That was not a good thing. So, hell of a balance. And I want to give a shout out to Danny Navarro. Danny was on our show, I think, a couple of podcasts ago. For those listening at home, it was a great story. But he connected me to Mike, which I always appreciate because some of my very best episodes that I have are referrals coming from other Nightmare Success guests. So, Mike, you're up in Chicago, right?
I am in Chicago. We're getting into that spring, hopefully here. And somebody said this morning we're supposed to have a snowstorm tomorrow. So, it's that time of year, right?
It doesn't feel like spring when it starts snowing again. No,
it does not.
No, I actually went up to see my middle daughter Carly a couple of weeks ago, and it was weird because she kept saying it snowed like 4 or 5 inches, and I went back past the airport and there's no snow, and then by the time we got to where she was, she's up north, and there was like 5 inches of snow. It was like a direct line that went through there, and there was real snow there.
Where she
lives? It was up in Lake Forest.
Oh, okay. God, if you get it, Brent, look me up. Let's have coffee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
for sure. We head up there because we have to see my daughter and Sam, her husband, and they're loving life up there. They're out of the big city downtown. So So did you grow up, Mike, in Chicago?
In the suburbs. So
okay.
I live in the city now. When I came home from prison and did my life, figured out what I was, or try to figure out what I was going to do, I just said, hey, I've always wanted to live in the city. I'm going to move downtown. So,
well, take me back a little bit to your early life of little Mike, growing up as a kid, family, siblings. What was going on in your world growing up?
Yeah, so I'm the oldest of 3.
Okay.
I'm the hero. The pioneer, so to say. Family background, came from a pretty dysfunctional household, but I think more importantly is I didn't grow up in a household of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I got that blood. I I do remember sitting on the side of a swimming pool one day. We were on family vacation, and I remember I had to be 8 years old, Brent. And I asked my dad, I said, "Hey, what are all the rooms around this building?" And he said, "Oh, people come here, they stay here, and they pay the owner money to stay here." And I don't know, that instant, I was like, damn, I want to be the owner. I want people paying me money. And I think that's where I got the real estate bug was back then, because I'd always been curious about buildings and real estate. And so
It's in your blood. It was in your
yeah,
blood. Well, I know that you kind of were entrepreneur thinking early on. I mean, you had a paper route, and you were kind of figuring things out as a kid. Not every kid has a paper route.
yeah. And today you can't even get one, but I think I had two actually.
Yeah,
But the whole lemonade stand thing and a couple
yeah.
of routes and always being an entrepreneur, trying to figure things out. When I was a young kid, my dad used to work for a couple of the Chicago newspapers,
Yeah.
the Chicago Tribune actually, and he would take me to work with him in the summer, and he'd put me in a factory, and I would sell papers in the morning to the guys and men and women coming in, going to work in the factory.
Great idea.
Yeah. So, but he taught me some basic skills, like how to count change without
Yeah.
a calculator or a cash register, right? And how to make change for odd numbers and things like that. And taught me directions and how to get around. And so it was always interesting, but
Were you close? Were you close, Mike, with your dad?
I
Was
was,
it? Yeah.
yeah, I was. Yeah, he actually, God, can I say this on air? But I've never said this on a podcast. He actually got murdered in
Oh my gosh.
1983. So
Wow.
we were close. And it was, my parents had split up by then. I was out of high school, and
It had to be so traumatic. I mean, for someone to die, obviously that's traumatic. But when somebody dies that's violent, I just can't even know how you wrap your mind around that.
Yeah, and Brent, it was violent. It was a syndicate hit. My dad happened to be with somebody who these guys were after,
Mhm.
and the police kind of said that because the one guy got shot 10 times, my dad got shot once, and
Mhm.
but that was a long time ago. I was 23,
Yeah.
24. I'm a little bit
Yeah.
older than that now.
Well, we've both got gray hair, so you never know how old somebody is.
Yeah. And so it's funny because when I was in prison, so in 2005, they rounded up all these guys from the syndicate. They had this big thing here in Chicago called Family Secret Trial.
Mhm.
And they all got convicted of murder. There were 23 different murders. My dad was one of those. And they, say what they put the rest of the syndicate in jail, but that never happened. But it
I
was
had to be. I just can't imagine, Mike. Going through that, because I guess backing up a little bit here, when you were growing up, and you're talking about your dad and how he kind of helped you out, did you, like, as a kid, was it kind of a normal childhood? Did you play sports, go to school, play in the neighborhood? Was that kind of your world?
Yeah, I played baseball. My mom always told me you should be a professional baseball player. They didn't make as much money back then as they do now.
They didn't. They did make money.
But baseball was my passion. I played baseball, I played football, I wrestled in high school.
Okay.
And so I was pretty athletic, and
Did that lead you through your high school years being involved in that? Did you go to college, and like, how did that all progress for you?
So I was going to go to Arizona State. Actually talks about a scholarship, and I got hurt senior year. fourth day of summer practice for football, I stepped in a rabbit hole and blew my knee out.
Mm.
And it was, it was over for me. So
How'd you deal with that?
drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Real
went up,
downer.
yeah,
Yeah.
went down in that rabbit hole and drugs and alcohol.
So, I mean, how long did you, in that world of really probably was a depression, that was your goal, what you were shooting for? How long did you stay in that world of being down?
Yeah, so great question. So I thought that, I thought life was going to be to be a cocaine dealer, and
Hmm.
run dope and got involved in some, God, I've never talked about this stuff on a podcast before. So this will be a good one. Yeah, and that didn't work out either because, my addiction took over. Rodney Dangerfield had an old line. He said, man, I'd quit snorting coke if I didn't like the smell so much.
Oh God.
So, the day came where I was living in an old farmhouse.
Hmm.
And I lived in the basement and I thought I was so cool, Brett. I was an entrepreneur. I had 2 mattresses on the floor. Had my desk. I had 2 milk crates with a board on it. That's my desk. And I was in the construction business, just starting out.
Yeah.
And I'm young, right?
Yeah.
So I'm upstairs was another couple living, and then above the garage there was another apartment. And it was a Friday night. And I'm deep in my disease at that time, but it's a Friday night, and I'm hanging out with this girl, and we and the couple upstairs and the couple who live above the garage, and we're partying hard. And so it starts Friday night, and by Sunday late night, midnight, 1 o'clock, Johnny, who lived in the apartment above the garage, says, hey, let's play Russian roulette. And pulls a gun out, puts it on the table, and says, who's going first? And I look at this girl and we say, hey, we're leaving. We
Hmm.
leave. Then the other guy, Tim and Chris, they leave. And I don't get to the bottom of the stairs and I hear bang.
Oh
And
man.
his girlfriend, Kathy, scream and run back upstairs, and he had blown half his head off. That was enough to get me into treatment the next day.
That was a wake up call.
Yeah. So I went to treatment about 4 months later. My dad got murdered, and
Mm.
just kind of from there, tried to figure out how to live life.
Hmm.
Got rid of this girl.
Did that make you want to fall back into the drugs and alcohol, or had you steadied yourself enough that even though this traumatic event happened, that you were gonna step through it?
Yeah, so it's funny, right? Because I was in this 6-week treatment program, or I was in a 4-week treatment program, and they threw me out after 6 weeks, told me to come back when I wanted to get serious.
Mm.
And I've always had this attitude of I'll show you,
Hmm.
and I walked out of there saying I'll show you. So I started going to AA, and I got really serious, and I got sober, and I was sober for 26 years. So
Wow.
um and I always say, that I was sober most of the time, but I had all those times too where I wasn't, dry. I never went back and used drugs or drank again over
Hmm.
that period of time till my business started to fail.
Yeah.
And at the time when I got sober, I was in the construction business. So I was building a construction company.
Yeah, I want to know about all that because it's interesting how your life from what I can tell, the background story is that's how you really entered the world of real estate you got into construction.
Yeah. So, my dad always said, he said, look, if you ever go into business for yourself, food, shelter, or clothing. And
Yeah.
I've always been in shelter, right? Started with
Mhm.
construction. So a funny story, I had a swimming pool business, and I'm in the Midwest, and it's not a good business in the wintertime.
Not in
So I needed to
Chicago.
figure something else out to do. So I started doing kitchen and bath remodeling, and that
Yeah.
led to room additions. And before I knew it, that's all I was doing was
Yeah.
construction. But like any entrepreneur, Brent, I was, doing the marketing, the sales, the contract writing, the ordering, the hiring,
Yeah.
the firing,
Wearing
and
all the hats.
still in the field banging nails.
Yeah.
And woke up one morning, and I was married at the time, my first wife, and woke up in the morning, looked at my wife, and I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Burnt out, just burnt to a crisp. And
how many years had that been that you got burnt out?
15.
All right, that's a
Yeah.
good amount of time. Yeah.
15 years. So I had somebody knocking on my door. They wanted to buy the company, and I sold the company. So
Wow.
I had a little bit of startup
Yeah.
capital, runway capital, and I went and bought a 2-flat
Okay.
to house hack. And today it's sexy, but back then nobody was doing it. So
Right.
we're living in one of these units, remodeling the other one, and I sold the company with the intention of taking a year off, but as an entrepreneur, we never take time off, right?
Sure.
So I get into this other project, but I had heard Jim Rohn say years ago that success leaves clues,
Mm-hmm.
and always understood that, right? So if you model somebody who's successful, you can shorten your learning curve. You can do things and grow at a steadier pace. And even if you follow people who've made mistakes, you're going to learn a lot.
Oh yeah, and I'm a big believer that saying that, Mike, is such a big tip, because if you find somebody that's getting it right and they're doing something that you can implement in your business, it's like getting the answers to the test before the test. And it also gives you a lot more confidence to implement that because you already know somebody else is making it work. So many people miss that. And I think, maybe it's just not having your eyes open and thinking you've got to figure it out and reinvent everything yourself, because there's so many clues out there. And I like what you said. You can also learn from the mistakes that happen, because then you find out, okay, when I get to that, I'm not going to do that. And that's those building business. I built a division in our company that was totally modeled off a pharmaceutical company, and we were in the funeral business, and it worked perfectly. But for entrepreneurs, you don't just get a 3-ring binder to be, okay, here's the entrepreneur 3-ring binder. You have to look, create, implement, take action, fall back. Mistakes happen, get a little wiser, and you move forward.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So yeah.
So you've got the two. You're in business. You've got the 2-flat. You're remodeling, and that's on go.
So and this is my first experience in real estate at this time. So I meet a real estate agent, really successful. This is back when houses were $50,000 average, and he was selling 100 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to him and I said, hey, I think I'd like to go in this business. He said, oh, I think you'd be great at it. So he encouraged me. And then I went to him and I said, hey, could I shadow you, and work, see how your team operates? He goes, no. He goes, but I'm going to do better than that. I'm going to make you a cassette tape. And this is a long time ago now, right? So he makes
kids
me
the 20-year-olds are saying, what are those?
Yeah, right. Much less find something to make one on.
Yeah, right.
And I listened to that tape over and over and over again. I went into business in the early 90s, and I sold 78 houses my first 9 months in the business. I was Remax Rookie of the Year. Went on to build a team selling 125 homes a year. Did that consecutively for about 12 years. And then 2005 came around, and I saw the market starting to shift. and I had people working for me. And here again, I'm the hero. I don't want to lay anybody off. I don't want to give anybody bad news.
Yeah.
I think, I always wanted to be in the apartment business. It was one of those dreams I had. I watched a couple of apartment syndicators here in the Chicago market that started from nothing. And one in particular today is the largest REIT in the world. And they're in 80 countries, every asset class. And I said, man, anything's possible.
Yeah.
So I understood you could raise private equity, marry it with a great real estate deal, stay in the middle. And as long as everything went well, everybody'd do well.
Mm-hmm.
I syndicated my first deal in 2005. Over the next 30 months, I raised $18 million. I bought 4,000 apartments in 5 US markets. I built a property management company managing 7,500 units. And I did that in 30 months.
That's incredible.
2008 rolled around and it was like hitting a brick wall in a freight train.
Yeah.
I grew way too fast. So I always tell people I made 5 mistakes. The first is I grew way too fast, very unstable as a company. Don't ever do what I did. Yes, the models work, the systems work, but take your time, be patient. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I was over.
But it's intoxicating though, Mike. I think that's one thing that is kind of lays behind all that. When you're growing something, the fun and the feel of growth and seeing people do well that are with you and your company, it's got a certain rhythm and feel to it. And I think that's where you can get blindsided. And, the little things don't seem that big. And so they can get bigger as you're moving. And I think that's what happens a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that you do get it. I like that word intoxicated, right? It's kind of, you fall in love with it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so I grew this company, 2008 rolled around, started to unravel. Had no idea where the market was headed. I had probably 12 companies that I should have let go to foreclosure. And a handful of investors get hurt. But here again, I'm the hero and I have to try and save everybody. So I decide I'm going to start moving money from profitable companies to non-profitable companies and try and keep everything afloat so none of my investors get hurt. My attorney, my accountant both said it's okay to do that. Just leave a paper trail. I'm of the belief at this point that this is a short recession. It's going to be 10 to 12 months or 17, 18 months, like a typical recession. And we're going to have 10 to 12% correction in the market. And then everything's going to bounce back.
Right.
Well, was I wrong? 7 or 8 years.
It was the Great Recession, right?
40% correction in the market. You can't withstand that storm. So, moving money was one thing, but non-disclosure was another. See, when you raise private capital, you're held at a much higher standard and you need to tell people where their money is and what the movement is. We didn't lie on any documents about anything, but I didn't tell my investors that I took their money or their profits from here and put it here so that they wouldn't get hurt.
Yeah.
So I wound up being charged on wire fraud and mail fraud charges for non-disclosure issues. And Brett, wire fraud and mail fraud charges are so vast, right? I mean, some actually could go to prison for wiring their electric bill payment in.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's very scary when you look at mail fraud, wire fraud, because that's what we had. And 30-year business, they stack those charges. Many times you want to charge somebody that they put something in the mails. Many times you want to charge somebody for the wire fraud. How did it come on you, Mike? Obviously that's where you ended up, but how did you feel it coming at you? Did you know you were being investigated? Were there indications did you get a knock on the door?
Yeah. So great question, right? I don't know that I knew. I never thought I was breaking the law. Actually our in-house legal counsel said this. He said, look, He goes, let's shut everything down, file bankruptcy if we need to, and we can open back up in 6 months. Everybody does it. That was the exact conversation. And so what we wound up doing was in November of 2010, we had put all of our assets with a receiver. We did kind of a voluntary bankruptcy, but we never went bankrupt. We just turned all our assets over. So all that real estate we gave, a receiver came in to operate it, to kind of be that bandwidth between us and the investor, right?
Right.
The noise was so loud. I got a phone call one morning from one of our vice presidents, and Brent, I had 100 people working for us. I was building a company. My goal was to build this monstrosity.
Big national company, right?
And I get a call from one of our vice presidents one morning who says, hey, the FBI was just at my house asking questions. And I was like, damn, you're kidding, right? So I didn't really
send a cold chill up your spine when that happens.
Yeah, exactly. So I had that particular individual was working in an offsite place, working with another guy who was trying to do what we were trying to do at the time was get some bonds monetized. It was a couple $100 million in bonds. We thought if we could get, a portion of that monetized, that we'd be able to have some capital.
Sure.
And so we had paid this guy some upfront fees, like a consulting fee, coaching fee to try and do this. Well, he wound up getting indicted, not the guy who worked for me, but this other group wound up getting indicted on something he did 5 years before that in Arizona. That wasn't even on anybody's radar. And then, so that happened. Then, because we were named as a victim in that guy's case, there were a couple of phone calls to the FBI from investors, out of 250 investors saying, hey, we're trying to get our capital out. Well, Brett, real estate's illiquid. And especially when the market shifts, I mean, there's no capital to get out. So we think that it was a combination of those couple of things. There was an attorney who tried to do a class action lawsuit. I don't know where he got a list of our investors, but he called all of our investors, and everybody except for 2 or 3 investors told him to go scratch. That we weren't doing anything wrong. And even at sentencing, I had 12 investors that were in court saying, don't put him in prison. He's worth more to us on the street than he is put away. You know? And the government just didn't see it that way.
How long did that process last? Like the time that you find out the FBI is sniffing around to your standing in front of the judge.
Yeah. So 2010 in November, we put all of our assets with a receiver. But prior to that, so August of 2010, I was on vacation with my family. We were in Southern California, annual vacation, come home from vacation. And
how many kids you got, by the way? Forgot to ask you that.
Yeah, 5.
5 kids.
Yeah.
Wow.
3 don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Today, as a result of all this,
That's
which
sad.
is an absolute shame. I mean, I would give anything to have those relationships back, and that's the only regret from this whole thing I have is my relationship with my children today. So,
well, there's so much collateral damage that happens with that, and the whole family goes through something like this when someone is targeted and an investigation happens, and it's just a horrible thing. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, even if somebody was really mean to me. I really, the experience of having to go through a federal investigation is the nightmare of nightmares, because you go to bed with it, you wake up with it, and the hole just keeps getting bigger and deeper, and everybody that's around you feels that, and it's a lot. So I want to get in. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me finish this, because I think this is really important at this point.
Yeah.
So in August of 2010, I'm on vacation. I come back. My ex-partner hands me 2 business cards. He says, you need to find a criminal attorney. I go, criminal? I had no idea that we were
Yeah.
at that point. So I find a criminal attorney, and he says, oh, I don't think you guys have done anything wrong. You'll be okay. November of 2010, we put all our assets with a receiver. In May of 2011, I get indicted.
Mm.
Shortly after that, I'm in my attorney's office reading the 302s, the FBI reports.
Yeah.
And I'm reading these reports, and I go, my ex-partner testified at the grand jury in August in 2010 when I was on vacation to throw me under the bus. So my
Wow.
ex-partner, our in-house legal counsel, and our director of finance testified at the grand jury in August, crafted this story, and I'm reading this stuff and I'm going, oh my God, none of this shit ever happened. You're kidding me.
And there it was.
And I got, listen, so, I got so mad that day, and I was so angry, and I was in tears in my attorney's office. It was a Friday afternoon.
Mhm.
And my attorney, he said, look, he goes, you're not leaving. Cause I said, hey, if I'm going to prison, I'm going to prison for murder. I said,
Mhm.
I'm going to go home, and I'm going right to this guy's house.
Mhm.
My attorney, so that was at 3:00 in the afternoon on a Friday. My attorney was expected at home by his wife to go out for a dinner function at 6. We never left his office till 8:30 because he wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to go.
You were that mad. Yeah.
I was really upset.
And that would have been bad.
Yeah.
And
Well, I might have been home sooner though.
it's true. That's true. That's an inside joke, but that might be true. So I want to get into you stepping into the unknown world of prison. But before we do that, there's a guy that has a company that is crisis management. He's a sponsor of the company. It's AaronDuncan.net, full service global communications company. And they are basically the company that tries to make and does a really good job of making bad news go away. They're known as the trauma surgeons of brand crises, corporate scandals, high profile litigation, legal investigations, prosecutions. And, they do the work that a lot of attorneys sometimes don't do, is they'll go in deep and go into that discovery and find things to help a crisis out. And they know what they're looking for. Their services include crisis management, crisis communication, media relations, reputation management, positive public relations, prison consulting and coaching. For a confidential consultation regarding a crisis or reputation issue, email Aaron W. Duncan at gmail.com. Text or phone 636-236-5071 for anybody who's got a crisis out there. I could have used these guys back in the day, so don't be afraid to give these guys a call if you feel like you've got some dark places and you need help. So, yeah, we could have used that guy, right, Mike?
Yeah.
Have him come in and save the day and get you out of the crisis, or at least wade you through the mess. So let's talk about this. So your attorney, now you know that you're cooked. They've taken your people in, and they've got this narrative now that is only going to grow bigger, because that's the way when you see the United States of America versus your name, that might be one of the most intimidating pieces of paper you can look at.
Yeah, 100%.
So you go through, how long does this whole investigation from indictment to getting sentenced last?
So I got indicted in May of 2011, and I reported self-surrendered July 13th of 2013.
Okay. So you went through a couple of years of living under the umbrella of indictment.
And it was terrible. It was just awful. I mean, every time the phone rang, a squad car would go past you with their lights on. I mean, it was awful.
Yeah.
And like you said, I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Mm-mm.
Here's what I can tell you though. I got sentenced to 10 years. My ex-partner was home in 30 months.
Wow. Well, that's how that works. I mean, that's how those things work. And I want to know how you felt though, the day that you were in there. Did you know that you were the possibility of getting 10 years? Has that been worked out in the back rooms? And
No,
when he
no.
lays down 10 years, what does Mike think?
So
It's a big number.
we had a sentencing hearing, blind plea. I pled guilty. Sentencing hearing lasted 7.5 hours. 5.5 hours, I had a forensic accountant on the stand that the government paid for and proved that my loss was 2 million. And the government said, that's nice, but we're gonna charge you with 18 million in restitution.
Yeah.
So, but during the sentencing hearing, my attorney leaned over and he wrote the number 48 on a piece of paper. So you're going to get 48 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm standing and the judge is reading all the,
Stuff.
yeah, the mashugana that he reads prior to telling you what the number is.
Right.
And when he said 120 months, this happened in the courtroom. Everybody sucked all the air out of the courtroom. It was all of a sudden like surreal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in my mind going 120 months, 12 into 120 months. I thought, that's 10 fucking years.
That's 10.
Can I say that? Sorry.
Yeah, you can say that. We're on explicit.
So I'm like 10 years. And then I turn around and my wife, two of my daughters are in tears in the courtroom. And, I went to left court that day after my sentencing. They gave me, and then they tried to arrest me right away. And my attorney, the only good thing my attorney did was fight for me to have 90 days to get my life together. And, so I didn't report. That was in April of 2013. I wound up reporting in July. So I had like 74 days. I was on an ankle monitor. But I left court that day, and my wife and two of my daughters and myself in the car, we went to one of my daughter's houses, who was living with her mom. And, when I told her that I got 10 years, she ran into her room and I've never talked to her again.
Wow.
So, I have a good relationship with my oldest daughter, and my grandkids, but the aftermath is
Devastating.
It's devastating, and that never gets taken into consideration by the government, by anybody. They get another notch on their belt. Actually, my prosecutor's a judge today, and good for him. He worked hard to get there, right? But listen, here's what I know. 5 years before I was indicted, the SEC would have stepped in, slapped my hand, charged me $250,000 fine, said, go back and straighten your business out and don't let it happen again. And we'd have an opportunity to straighten everything out. There was no, but after Bernie Madoff,
Everything changed.
All the white collar stuff got crazy.
Yeah.
So
walk me into, because you're going into prison, which is something you never planned on. It's the unknown world. Where did they send you?
I went to Duluth,
okay,
which is actually Barbara Walters did a expose on.
Remember that?
Yeah, years ago, and it was club fed.
Yeah.
They had a bowling alley and a swimming pool and a 3-hole golf course, And they didn't have any of that when I went there.
Now they got rid of all that once that happened.
Yeah.
I think that was in late 80s when she did that
Yeah.
expose, and that stripped everything of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
what are you thinking? You're voluntarily surrendered. You're standing at the gate. You know you got a 10-year sentence. What is going through your mind, Mike, that with this walking into this world that you never planned on, but know that you're going to be here for a while?
I had no idea. So the day I got indicted, I left court that day. My wife and I climbed in the car and I said, hey, look, I said, we have two choices. I said, I can scurry around, put an envelope together with a couple $100,000 in it, and you're going to burn through that in a couple of years and go have to get a job, or I can build a business for you. So I took the next 2 years and delayed while I built a property management company that she still owns and operates here in Chicago today. It kept her and the kids in the house. So it's been her livelihood, right?
Yeah.
Before I went away. So I really didn't think much, Brett, about what it was going to be like, what was going to happen. But I remember so I get on the airplane. It's a Monday morning. I get on the airplane to fly to
Duluth.
And we're about 30 minutes into the flight, and the pilot comes on and says, flight attendants, prepare the plane for an emergency landing. And I think to myself, what a way to end this story, right? It goes down in a ball of flames. And we wound up getting back to O'Hare safely, but it was, they couldn't pressurize the cabin. So they had to go back. So I have to call the prison. And, the guy gets on the phone and he's like, yeah, hold on. And he must have called the airlines to find out that I was telling the truth.
Sure.
Just try to be here before midnight. Keep us posted. So I call my wife, come back, pick me up. She picks me up, brings me back to back home. I spend a day with her and the kids, takes me back to the airport that night. And I get on the plane. I get to Duluth, get in the cab. The guy drives me from the airport to the prison, and I get in, and they're just dicky to you when you get there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you're by yourself? Huh. Didn't have, all their snide comments.
Prisonize you, yeah, right.
Yeah. But they put me in this observation room, steel cell with a steel toilet and a concrete bed with a mattress pad that was maybe a half-inch thick. I mean, a yoga pad's got more cushion than this thing had. And I sat there from 1 o'clock in the morning till 7.
Just thinking.
I was like, what the fuck did I do to my life?
Yeah.
What did I do? And God, you're making me think about stuff that I just haven't really thought about. And so, Brett, I cried.
Yeah.
Prison's not a place you want to cry. No. But I cried every day for 18 months. 18 months. I was in prison 3 weeks. My wife decided she was going to divorce me. It wrecked me. 2 kids wouldn't talk to me. And I was wondering what the hell happened in my life. I walked around every day just wondering what next.
Am I going to do? Right.
And so I walk in the gym. I'm about 6 weeks in. And remember, I've gone from running marathons and being in great shape to being 35 pounds overweight. I hate myself, and
depressed.
Yeah. And I walk into prison, and this guy walks over to me and he goes, hey, get over it. He goes, don't let these people beat you. All I want to do is take everything from you you've ever known or ever wanted. He goes, you can get it all back. He goes, you're a smart guy. You built $100 million company. You built companies before that. He goes, they can't take what you have inside.
Right.
I don't know what it was, but I think we all have these defining moments in our life, and the switch flipped. And I went, okay. He said, come to my class, work out, start losing weight. You'll start feeling better. And I did. I don't know what it was, but I took him up on it. And I was just window shopping that day. I wasn't looking to go to the gym or do anything. And so I started going to this guy's class, and I started losing weight. I started feeling better. I wound up going to college. I got a bachelor's degree in theology. I wrote 2 books. I started teaching in education. So I taught real estate investing, property management, and ethics. How ironic, a federal inmate
Yeah.
teaching ethics,
Love it.
right?
Yeah.
I was on an outreach program. I went into the community. I told my story 40 times to local business owners, and college students. I wound
Love
up
it.
being a professor from the University of Minnesota. He and I co-authored a paper together that we had published in the Business Journal of Ethics, that today gets taught at the collegiate level for forensic accounting and sales and marketing classes. And today I'm home. I'm in the coaching and training business. I teach people not to make the mistakes I made.
Yeah.
And how to exit their real estate deals. That's the name of my book, Exit Plan.
Yeah. Exit
And
plan.
I got approved by the SEC to go back and be an issuer of securities and a sponsor of multifamily and raise capital again. So working on raising capital, putting deals together, and putting a life back together.
Well, let's unpack a little bit of that, of what you just said, because I think it's so interesting that you were at your rock bottom moment. I guess you maybe had a rock bottom moment when you just your dad got murdered, but I think this moment would have been much different because you're older and you've got more on the table of what is yours. But I think it's interesting how a rock bottom moment could be that you totally gave up, got in a fetal position, and the world's unfair and it'll never be right. And look at me where I'm at now. And you did exactly the opposite of that. Like your mindset changed to a new beginning. You begin to get confidence again that no, they didn't take my brain. I still am me. And what I think is interesting about all that is in prison, you didn't lose yourself. You actually started doing things that you had always done. And I'm pretty confident that probably helped you eat up your time because you were using your brain the way that you used your brain on the outside.
Yeah.
And that can be used in so many different things in life. Is you don't lose yourself in a bad situation. You have to grab and grip yourself. Even if it's your rock bottom moment, you have a choice. You take the victim route or you take the survivor route. You made a hard turn towards survivor. When you started getting close to the door, knowing that you're getting out, what were you thinking? Were you thinking, I'm going to step in and create what I've been thinking, and this is going to be Mike Morawski 2.0?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Job in the Bible, and I was coming out thinking, man, I have this whiteboard. I can redesign everything. And I had this business plan that I had built, and I was going to, just come back and do the coaching and training business, speak publicly. And I do all that, but I never thought that I was going to raise capital again, or that I would go back into the real estate space in the capacity that I'm in today.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of people in my court that have encouraged me and loved me through all of this.
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends says that I'm going to be the Michael Milken of multifamily.
He to me, that guy is the epic. I followed that all the way back in the 80s and how he did what he did, and just never gave up his brilliance. And people had to come to him, and they didn't want to, but they needed him because he was just that smart.
I love that. Never give up your brilliance.
And he didn't. He went through cancer, and he went through everything, and kept being who he was.
Yeah.
Was it hard, Mike, for you, being an ex-felon? You're tattooed with that. You never give it up. Doesn't matter how much time they give you. You're going to be an ex-felon when you go out in the world. How did you step through that? Because you had to start building again. That's
a great question. So for the first 6 months, I wouldn't tell anybody. But here's the thing that happened. Just like before I went in, after I got indicted, I was always looking over my shoulder and wondering when it was going to come up or somebody was going to say something. So I have a call with a guy from New York one morning, and he calls me and he said, look, I was just on a red eye from California to New York last night. I read your book. It's brilliant. He goes, but tell me who Frank Constant is. Oh God, you might want to edit that out. Sorry. And I said, oh, he's my ex-partner. He goes, good answer. Because if you would have told me any different, I would have known you were a liar. Again, one of those defining moments. So I talked to some of my close, confident people around me.
Mhm.
And I started telling my story every chance I could. I've been on.
Liberating though, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Because it provides hope and inspiration.
Yeah.
And I want people to know, don't be defined by your past.
Exactly.
Who cares if there was alcoholism, drug abuse, addiction, if there was sexual violence, if there was verbal violence, physical, who cares? Don't let that crap hold you back. Move forward. Get on.
But I think, quite honestly, first of all, people like a good comeback, and it also makes you more authentic, Mike, that you did build a big empire of your own. You lost it. And it becomes more believable that, yes, you've gone through all this, you know where the landmines are, and you're not going to do that again. You're going to build something how you want to build it. And people, once they hear and feel that, I think it draws people. And I think that's why you're doing the job that you're doing now, is because it's if you keep that on the outside and then they have to find it out some way, it's like, well, why is he not talking about that? Yeah. But the fact that you're leading with that, I just think it makes you more effective of all the things that you're doing. You're coaching people, you're walking them through real estate, you're putting the syndicates together. How hard was it for you to get relicensed back in to be able to raise money?
I'm not licensed. So I'm coaching a couple of people in my coaching business, and I had been underwriting deals on, in kind of what's my spare time, as an entrepreneur, spare time.
Right.
I find this deal. And so I went to one of my coaching clients and I said, hey, I think you might be ready. I said, do you think this is something you want to do? So we started to walk down the road, and I said, look, you and I are not going to do this on our own. Went to another coaching client, brought her in, and the three of us partnered on a deal. Securities attorney out of Boulder, my hat's off to her. I never even thought about this. And she says, hey, I think I can get you approved by the SEC to go back and do this. Mm-hmm. And I said, have at it. So I don't hear from her for about 3 months about the topic. One day she shows up on a call and goes, hey, look what I got. Letter from the SEC says, just go back. All you have to do is disclose it for 6 months and then you're done. I said, let's go back to them, tell them that I'll disclose it forever.
Yeah.
And they were even happier with that. So you don't have to get licensed for what I do on the side of the aisle, but I got the approval. And I never thought, Brent, that I would do this again. And here's what happened. I'm on a meetup one day, and there's probably 150 people on this meetup. I'm telling my story, and some guy, and I don't even know who it was today, but some guy out of clear blue nowhere goes, hey, are you raising capital again? And I said, no. He goes, well, let me know when you are, because I wouldn't want to invest with anybody other than you, because you made the mistakes.
Well, I think that's just, I love that story. And I think the other thing I love is that you went ahead and went through with it. And a guy like you that goes ahead and put yourself out there and you get approved, you're a trailblazer for the people who don't think it's possible. Yeah. And what you do is you open that crack in the door there and start walking through that. That helps other people walk through that door, because those are the things that need to happen. There's 25 million ex-felons out there, and there's an awful lot of them that think that there's a dead end because of what happened to them. But these type of stories, Mike, give people hope that you can do it. And that's a huge thing, because like you said, that's a mindset thing. You changed your mindset in prison and you've continued on as you've gotten out. Is it easy? Absolutely not. There's nothing easy about anything that you've done or anything you've talked about. I think maybe probably you being a smart guy that's wired into thinking a certain way might not be easy for somebody else, but having the ability to step into stuff that scares you is something that you do.
Yeah, it's not easy without prison.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, it's uh it's worth it though.
So getting back home and doing, so how long has it been since you've been out?
I came home the week they closed the world down for the pandemic.
Yeah.
So March of 2020.
Yeah.
I was on home confinement for 10 months, and then I had 2 years of probation. January, I got off probation and left the country.
I love it. So, I mean, do you feel like now, this a couple of years going into 2023, do you feel, because I think it takes a while to get your feet under you to feel like, okay, I'm back, I'm me. Do you feel pretty good?
Yeah, I feel a lot better, Brent. Listen, I think restitution will haunt us for the next
Rest of our lives.
years.
Yeah.
Here's what I say. And today in my life, I'm sober again, about 9.5 years. But I'm really sober today. I have a great relationship with Jesus. Those are cornerstones in my life, what is really important. And I say, listen, if God wants me to pay all that money back, then he's going to bless me beyond belief, and we are going to have a hell of a good time along the way.
Yep.
So
I love it. That's a great way to think about it too. Mike, what do you think, as you've lived quite a journey here, for the listeners out there, what do you think is your biggest takeaway from all this stuff that you've been through?
Relationships are critical and really, really important. Relationships are really important, and that the really true people in your life, after you go through a time like that, are still true people.
Yes.
I have a handful of people in my life that were there for me every step of the way. And if they weren't, they certainly have been since then.
That's a big one, though.
Yeah.
Relationships, if you don't have them, it's a lonely walk.
Yeah. And I've been really liking getting to know you and, what we're building here. So I like, it's about, what can I do for somebody else today? Does my message help them? Does my product help them? Do I give them something that's of substance?
Yeah. And that fuels you up.
Yeah.
Hey, for those out there, if you're into reading books, there's one that's right behind Mike that I can see. It's The Exit Plan. He says to me that he's also, and he should, be writing his life story. That I'm going to be pressuring him on and keep him on that, because I think people need to read that life story. If anybody else wants to read a book, I've got one too. It's Nightmare Success, Loyalty, Betrayal, Life Behind Bars, Adapting, Finally Breaking Free. Everybody, the crazy thing about Apple, if you go to Apple, hit that follow button up there. It's got little three lines there. Follow it. Scroll down, leave a review. Apple loves reviews, and it helps promote the show. I love it when people get on my website and we talk back and forth on BrentCassidy.com. And always loving the likes and the comments on Instagram and Facebook. Love the support. Love you guys listening. As I used to say when I was writing back and forth when I was in prison, stay strong, and I'll do the same. Mike, thanks so much for sharing your story today. It's a really inspirational story. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And Brett, if anybody wants a copy of that book, they can go to my website at mycoreintentions.com. And if you want to connect with me, I love to network, and I'm open to that. So you can email me direct at mike@mikemorawski.com, or find me on social media anywhere, wherever you hang out.
I do.
I've
been reading about him for a few days.
So,
I appreciate it, Mike.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it.